If I were to ask you, what are the symbols that best represent Judaism? You might say things like a menorah, the Torah scroll, talit, tefillin, or a shofar. And I would argue that each of these things are actually a spiral. And you might be saying to yourself, Rabbi, how could the menorah possibly be a spiral? I hope that everybody's okay to see this so far. We have a spiral. Of course. Spirals are everywhere in Judaism. And why is the spiral so important? Why is it such a prevalent Jewish symbol? For one, the spiral is made up of two wonderful shapes, the circle and the vector. The circle returns and returns again and again, just as we return each day, each week, each Yom Kippur, to this holy moment in time and space. And yet, like the vector, we are always moving forward. While we return to auspicious moments like these, we are never the same as we were the last time. Always growing, always learning, always becoming. This is the nature of the spiral, always becoming. I think this is a perfect metaphor for Judaism, for life, and for these days of awe. Judaism and Jews have a growth mindset. This is what the days of awe are all about. We come here to ask ourselves, what does it mean to become the best version of ourselves? What does it mean to actualize our potential? What does it look like to acknowledge who we were the last time around the spiral of our life? And who do we want to be the next time around? And perhaps, most importantly, how on earth do we get there? I will use the idea of the spiral itself to examine where we have come from, where we are now, and where we might be headed. Where do we come from? The original spiral, the spiral of creation. What begins with energy and light expands and swirls, moving from the chaos of the beginning of the universe to order. In his essay, Baderech, or On the Way, Rabbi Bradley Shavit Artson states that the cosmos is both self-created and self-creating. The universe created itself and continues to create anything and everything in it. From an extremely hot, dense point that scientists call singularity, the universe emerged from a gigantic explosion. All things, all ideas exist as a result of this process. This perpetual system that continues to expand and grow, where each moment builds on the previous. The universe and everything in it is a result of a single process that is dynamic and always becoming like the spiral. We are interconnected with the universe. We are one with the universe. We are made of star stuff. We come from the heavens. We come from the cosmos. This way of understanding the oneness of the universe, and perhaps existence itself, as being self-created and self-creating, to me, this is very Jewish. We acknowledge the singularity of creation and recognize the oneness of all things each time we recite the words of Shema. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. God is one. As astrophysicist and modern prophet Carl Sagan wrote, quote, "We are one. We are star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." This reminder of our interconnectedness with the cosmos must inform our day-to-day too. Sometimes thinking of the vastness of things can be overwhelming, but to be reminded of our infinitesimally small reality in the scale of this cosmic ocean, while remembering that we share a cosmic past with the source of existence, should only help to ground us and humble us. Today, on this day, as we float through space on this pale blue dot, spiraling around our sun, we find ourselves before this holy ark, above which hangs the Ner Tamid, the eternal light. This light symbolizes God's eternity and recalls the original golden menorah that once stood in the great temple in Jerusalem and in the mobile desert temple called the Mishkan. The menorah, as Dr. Rabbi Rachel Adler points out, the menorah is described in the Torah as resembling an almond tree with branches and flowers and blossoms of shimmering gold and fire. Imagine for a moment this menorah standing in the darkness of the temple. It would have undoubtedly resembled the burning bush. This Ner Tamid, this menorah, are all intended to have us recall the story of the burning bush, the original symbol of God's eternity. When God introduced God's self to Moses at the burning bush, God introduced God's self under the name Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, which literally means, I will be what I will be. The burning bush, of course, is the symbol of God's eternity. And yet, I will be what I will be expresses a sentiment of a future unknown, where God is permanent, yes, but always becoming and never final. The God of becoming, the God of the spiral. If God is like a spiral, always becoming, how much more so are we obligated to commit ourselves to becoming? How much more so should we continue to grow along spiritual lines, to strive for a sense of godliness in our own lives? In the Amidah liturgy, we recite the words of Givurot, whereby we acknowledge God's awesome power. We thank God for God's ability to sustain life through love, to support the fallen, to heal the sick, to free the captive, and for God's ability to keep faith with those who sleep in dust. While I was teaching this prayer to my Sunday school class, it occurred to me that each of these qualities are things that we can and should do. We can sustain life through love. Anyone who's ever had a child or a pet knows this. We can support the fallen, the sullen, and the downtrodden. In fact, we should. We can heal the sick. My appreciation for doctors and nurses and all healthcare workers has grown exponentially over these last few years. And I want to say thank you to all of you. We can free the captive through striving to eradicate injustice wherever we may find it. And we can keep faith with those who sleep in dust. God knows there are so many people in our city experiencing homelessness. The point is, when the Givurot prayer asks, "Who is like you, God, source of mighty acts?" maybe we should respond, we are. We are capable of godliness. And how lucky are we that we have a prescription for godliness in our tradition? These godly ideals are like a lure at the end of a fishing line, urging us from where we are toward our best selves, urging us toward godliness. Life is, as always, a spiraling series of choices, where each choice leads to a decision, and those decisions lead to consequences and ever more choices. We always have options to consider when making decisions in our lives, but this notion of godliness urges us toward the optimal choice, the choice steeped in love, compassion, justice, and wisdom. And the good news is that if we make a mistake, if we miss the mark, and we will miss the mark, God is like a GPS to keep us from spiraling out of control. The GPS shows us how to go from point A to point B, from where we are to godliness. What happens if we make a wrong turn? Does the GPS just shut down? Does the GPS begin to berate us or make us feel guilty? No, it recalculates. When we miss our turn in this spiral of life, God recalculates with us, ever the lure, urging us to turn toward what is right, urging us to spiral toward our potential. While Yom Kippur is the day when we are forced to reconcile who we are today with who we are capable of being, it is my hope that today is a day dedicated to recalculating the spiral that is each of our lives. Recalculating our priorities by taking the time to determine what really matters in life, to ask ourselves, what deserves my focus, my time, my resources? A time for recalculating our relationships by taking the opportunity to ask ourselves, who is urging me toward godliness, toward my best self, and who is perhaps holding me back? And conversely, to consider who I might be holding back with my own shortcomings. And I hope that this is a day of recalculating our relationship with God, asking what paradigms of godliness might inspire us to fulfill and exceed the obligations we have to ourselves, our families, our community, and this planet. Finally, I hope that this is a day that inspires the daily recalculating of the trajectory of our lives, of our spiral, from this day until our last. Gemar Chatima Tova, may you be sealed in the book of life.